The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain near Bozid, Tunisia. On November 8, 1942, Obergefreiter Helm Schmidt crouched low behind a stone wall, his carabiner 98K rifle held tight against his chest. His fingers gripped the bolt with the ease of someone who'd worked it thousands of times over 3 years of soldiering. The mechanical rhythm was second nature by now. Load, fire, work the bolt back, eject the spent casing, push forward again, load the next round, aim, squeeze the trigger. Repeat. This was the pattern of war that had carried German infantry across Poland, through France, and deep into the frozen Russian steppes. 5 rounds sat in the internal magazine, each one requiring him to cycle that bolt manually. Each round a deliberate, controlled shot. Across the dusty field ahead, American soldiers were advancing in a loose line toward his position. Schmidt had heard the briefings. These Americans were supposedly inexperienced, soft, unprepared for real warfare. Their equipment was rumored to be inferior. Their training allegedly didn't match German standards. What happened in the next minute would prove every one of those assumptions catastrophically, devastatingly wrong. When the Americans opened fire, the sound was unlike anything Schmidt had ever encountered. This wasn't the familiar sharp crack of bolt-action rifles firing one at a time. This was something else entirely, a continuous, sustained roar of semi-automatic fire that just kept coming without pause. 8 rounds fired as fast as a finger could work a trigger, no stopping to work a bolt, no break in the fire, just wave after wave of aimed shots pouring down range. While Schmidt managed to get perhaps 3 rounds off, the American soldier across from him had already emptied his entire 8-round magazine and was already reloading. This was the M1 Garand rifle, and it was about to transform how infantry combat worked forever. The shock to German soldiers, men trained from childhood to believe in the superiority of German weapons and German tactics, would prove just as devastating as the weapon's actual firepower. This was more than just a story of one rifle being better than another. This was a complete tactical upheaval, a forced transformation on an entire military system built on different assumptions about how war should be fought. German confidence in their weapons came from centuries of military tradition running deep through their culture. The Carabiner 98K, officially adopted on June 21, 1935, represented what Germans believed was the height of bolt-action rifle design. It could hit targets accurately out to 550 yards using iron sights. It worked reliably in mud and frozen conditions. It was simple enough that conscripts could learn to maintain it. The Kar 98K embodied German thinking about what a military rifle should be. It fired the powerful 7.92 by 57mm Mauser cartridge, a round capable of punching through substantial cover. In trained hands, this rifle had conquered most of Europe. German military doctrine was built on the idea of disciplined, aimed fire from prepared defensive positions. Every infantryman was taught that each shot mattered. Make every round count. A skilled German soldier could fire roughly 15 aimed rounds per minute from his Kar 98K, working that bolt with practiced efficiency. When facing Polish troops, French forces, and British soldiers armed with similar bolt-action rifles, this seemed perfectly adequate. The British Lee Enfield could fire somewhat faster with its 10-round magazine, but German officers dismissed this as trading accuracy for speed, something they considered a bad bargain. When American forces began major combat operations in North Africa in November 1942, during Operation Torch, German intelligence prepared detailed assessments of American military equipment. These reports described a nation of industrial abundance, but military inexperience. American infantry, according to these assessments, relied too heavily on raw firepower and not enough on tactical skill and discipline. The M1 Garand appeared in these reports as a semi-automatic rifle worthy of note but not genuine concern. German analysts acknowledged its 8-round capacity and self-loading mechanism, but they pointed out it was heavier than the Kar 98K, about 9.5 pounds compared to 8.2 pounds. Their overall assessment concluded that while the M1 offered higher volume of fire, it sacrificed the accuracy and reliability that came from simpler bolt-action designs. But American forces had already been using the M1 Garand in actual combat for nearly a year before North Africa. They'd started on December 8, 1941, when Japanese forces invaded the Philippines the morning after Pearl Harbor. M1 rifles that had shipped between August and November of 1941 had equipped the U.S. Army's Philippine Division and the elite Philippine Scouts. These soldiers had used their Garands effectively enough that Japanese troops believed they were facing machine gun fire. General Douglas MacArthur had even cabled back in February 1942, praising how well the rifle performed in the dust and dirt of foxhole fighting. By the time Schmidt and his unit faced Americans in North Africa, the M1 Garand had already proven itself through nearly 12 months of brutal jungle warfare. The reality Schmidt encountered on the North African plains demolished German assumptions with brutal mathematical efficiency. His unit had established defensive positions, expecting to stop American advances through disciplined, accurate rifle fire. When the Americans attacked, the volume of return fire was staggering. Not machine gun fire, which German soldiers knew how to deal with, but sustained rifle fire. Continuous, unrelenting rifle fire coming at them from every direction. Schmidt would fire, work his bolt, find his target again, fire. Maybe 15 rounds per minute if he was working well, each one carefully aimed. But each American was firing 30 to 40 rounds per minute and actually hitting their targets. The Germans couldn't suppress them. Every time a German head popped up to return fire, multiple rounds came back immediately. The math was brutal and unforgiving. In a 2-minute firefight, a German soldier with a Kar 98K might fire 30 aimed rounds. An American with an M1 Garand could fire 80 rounds in those same 2 minutes. More important than the raw numbers was what the German soldier had to do between shots. He had to break his sight picture, work the bolt, relocate his target again, then fire. The American simply pulled the trigger 8 times in rapid succession. His aim stayed relatively steady, even with the rifle's modest recoil. The M1 Garand's semi-automatic operation worked through an elegant system. When a round fired, propellant gases were diverted through a port in the barrel into a cylinder positioned below. These gases drove a piston that cycled the action, ejecting the spent cartridge and chambering a fresh round automatically. The whole process happened in a fraction of a second. Between shots, the action remained closed, keeping the barrel aligned with the sight. This meant accuracy didn't suffer despite the rapid rate of fire. Tests conducted at Springfield Armory showed the M1 could maintain 4-minute of angle groups, just 4 inches of spread at 100 yards. Many production rifles actually performed even better than that. General George S. Patton understood what this rifle meant. In a letter dated January 26, 1945, addressed to Major General Levin H. Campbell, Jr., the Chief of Ordnance, Patton wrote that in his opinion, the M1 rifle was the greatest battle implement ever devised. This wasn't exaggeration or emotional language. Patton understood that this rifle had fundamentally changed how infantry combat worked. A soldier armed with an M1 Garand possessed firepower equivalent to multiple riflemen carrying bolt-action weapons, without giving up accuracy, reliability, or effective range. By mid-1943, the United States Army was equipping entire divisions with M1 Garands. During the entire war, from 1937 through 1945, roughly 4,122,000 M1 rifles were manufactured. Springfield Armory in Massachusetts produced 3,526,922 of them, while Winchester Repeating Arms in Connecticut manufactured another 513,880. Production reached such massive levels that by D-Day in June 1944, virtually every American rifleman carried an M1 Garand into combat. This represented an unprecedented military achievement, an entire fighting force numbering in the millions, all armed with semi-automatic rifles, while their opponents still carried bolt-action weapons. The M1 Garand's technical specifications told only part of the story. The rifle fired the .30-06 Springfield cartridge, a powerful round that had served American forces since 1906. The cartridge pushed a 150-grain bullet forward at roughly 2,800 feet per second, delivering substantial energy even at extended ranges. The rifle fed from an 8-round en-bloc clip, a metal clip inserted directly into the rifle's action. When the last round fired, the clip automatically ejected with a distinctive metallic ping sound. Some soldiers worried this sound might alert enemies to when they were reloading, but combat veterans consistently reported that the noise of battle made that ping completely inaudible beyond a few yards. The rifle's reliability became legendary among soldiers. Exposed to North African dust, Italian mud, Northern European cold, and later the brutal winters of Korea, the M1 functioned with minimal maintenance. Field stripping required no tools whatsoever. The operating rod and bolt could be removed for cleaning in just minutes, then reassembled quickly. German observers noted this reliability with both respect and frustration. German defensive doctrine leaned heavily on machine guns, providing suppressive fire, while riflemen engaged targets with careful, deliberate shots. The MG-34 and later the MG-42 were excellent machine guns, but they required crews, ammunition bearers, and were vulnerable to artillery fire. The M1 Garand changed this entire equation. American infantry squads, with each rifleman carrying a Garand, could generate firepower that approached what German machine gun teams could produce. More critically, this firepower was distributed across the entire squad. To suppress an American squad meant suppressing 8 or 9 individual soldiers, each one capable of putting down aimed fire. The Italian campaign beginning in September 1943 gave German forces extensive experience fighting against American troops. From the Salerno landings through the brutal fighting toward Rome, German infantry found themselves consistently outshot by American riflemen. A March 1944 report from a German unit captured after Rome fell noted that encounters with American infantry typically resulted in Germans being pinned down by rifle fire, often even when Germans held superior terrain. The report specifically recommended increased machine gun allocation to compensate for American advantages in infantry firepower. The German military establishment recognized the problem and attempted to find solutions. The Gewehr 41, introduced in 1941, was Germany's first attempt at a semi-automatic infantry rifle. Two competing designs emerged, the G41M from Mauser and the G41W from Walther. Both designs proved deeply fundamentally flawed. German military specifications insisted that no gas port be drilled in the barrel, fearing it might cause premature wear. This forced designers to use complex and unreliable gas trap systems positioned at the muzzle. These systems fouled easily and added unnecessary weight to the rifle. The weapons proved complicated to manufacture and difficult to maintain. Production remained limited, with estimates placing total production somewhere between 6,000 and 15,000 units before the design was abandoned entirely. German designers studied captured Soviet SVT-40 rifles and eventually acknowledged that the gas port system they had originally rejected actually worked effectively. The result was the Gewehr 43, introduced in October 1943. This weapon incorporated a simpler gas system and used a detachable 10-round magazine. The G43 represented a significant step forward, lighter and far more dependable than the earlier G41 rifles. By the time the war ended, manufacturers had produced roughly 402,113 of these weapons, with approximately 53,435 fitted with optical sights for precision shooters. Soldiers who carried the G43 generally regarded it favorably and appreciated its capabilities. Yet timing proved catastrophic. The weapon arrived far too late and in desperately insufficient quantities. For every single G43 manufactured, the Germans had produced around 50 Kar 98K rifles. This meant the overwhelming bulk of German infantrymen continued fighting with bolt-action weapons right through to the war's final days. Even troops fortunate enough to receive a G43 discovered it fell short when compared directly to the American M1 Garand. Though effective in its own right, the German rifle demanded greater mechanical sophistication and proved considerably harder to maintain under harsh field conditions. As German industry buckled under mounting pressure, spare parts grew increasingly difficult to obtain. The underlying issue was stark and unforgiving. Germany had started the war without any truly effective semi-automatic infantry rifle, and they never managed to bridge that gap. The M1 Garand's influence extended well beyond simple raw firepower calculations. This rifle fundamentally transformed the way American infantry operated on the battlefield. Combat training emphasized quick target identification combined with sustained continuous firing. The entire tactical approach assumed every infantryman possessed the ability to deliver substantial rapid fire against targets. Squads moved using fire and maneuver techniques, where half the unit maintained heavy covering fire while the other half advanced. The sheer volume these M1 Garands could produce made such tactics devastatingly effective in practice. Consider what unfolded at Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944, where the 29th Infantry Division held fortified defensive positions overlooking the bluffs. These 12,000 men occupied what appeared to be nearly impregnable terrain, with excellent fields of view, reinforced concrete bunkers, and interlocking machine gun coverage. Yet when American forces reached the base of those bluffs, something remarkable happened. Their fire became absolutely overwhelming. Every single soldier carried a semi-automatic rifle, and each one used it relentlessly. German defenders discovered they could not maintain aimed, deliberate fire because incoming rounds came in such staggering numbers. Machine gun crews found themselves targeted simultaneously by dozens of rifles firing continuously. Fighting through the Norman bocage during June and July 1944 gave German infantry extensive first-hand experience with American firepower. In the confined hedgerow terrain where engagements happened at distances under 100 yards, the Garand's rapid-fire capability proved absolutely decisive. The older German tactical approach, where a handful of riflemen covered a position while others maneuvered, simply stopped working. The covering fire from these semi-automatic rifles proved too intense and too relentless. German troops found themselves pinned down, unable to raise their heads or maneuver effectively. Researchers at the U.S. Army's Historical Division conducted detailed statistical analysis after the conflict, examining unit reports and casualty figures carefully. Their findings revealed something striking. American infantry squads consistently inflicted casualties at significantly higher rates than would have been predicted based purely on their numerical strength. Multiple factors played roles, naturally: artillery, air dominance, superior logistics. But when analysts focused specifically on infantry firefights, one pattern emerged clearly. The M1 Garand had made the decisive difference. American infantrymen could realistically expect to win engagements even when facing superior numbers, provided they maintained reasonable cover and had adequate ammunition. The German response came in the form of the Sturmgewehr 44, history's first genuine assault rifle. This revolutionary weapon fired an intermediate cartridge, the 7.92 by 33 mm round, from a 30-round magazine capable of both semi-automatic and fully automatic operation. The STG-44 represented genuinely forward-thinking. Manufacturers produced approximately 425,177 of them, concentrated mainly in 1944 and 1945. Yet, like the G-43 before it, this weapon suffered the same fatal flaw. It appeared too late and in far too limited numbers. The vast majority of German infantrymen never even saw one, let alone carried it into combat. Those rare soldiers who did possess one frequently discovered ammunition shortages as Germany's industrial capacity crumbled into chaos. The M1 Garand story began decades before World War II. John Cantius Garand, born January 1, 1888, in Saint-Remy, Quebec, Canada, immigrated to the United States with his family during 1899. He started employment at Springfield Armory on November 4, 1919, and would dedicate nearly 20 years to perfecting his semi-automatic rifle concept. His early prototypes experimented with various firing mechanisms and different caliber options. Initially, the U.S. Army favored a .276 caliber cartridge, which offered superior ballistic performance compared to the standard .30-06. However, General Douglas MacArthur, serving as Chief of Staff of the Army, overruled this preference. He insisted on maintaining the .30-06 cartridge to preserve existing ammunition supplies and ensure compatibility with current machine gun designs. This decision, made in 1932, postponed official adoption, but ultimately proved to be the right choice. Garand persisted with his refinements throughout the early 1930s. The rifle underwent grueling evaluation at Aberdeen Proving Ground and at Springfield Armory facilities. Issues surfaced during testing, and engineers addressed each one methodically. The gas operation system evolved from an early gas trap configuration to a more straightforward gas port design. The trigger assembly received attention and improvement. The wooden stock underwent redesign to enhance how soldiers handled and controlled the weapon. On January 9, 1936, the United States formally adopted it as the rifle caliber .30 M1. Early manufacturing proceeded slowly, with only modest production numbers in 1937 and 1938. As potential conflict loomed closer, production ramped up substantially, reaching 600 rifles daily by January 1941. This weapon served American forces across World War II, through the Korean conflict, and into the early years of American involvement in Vietnam. It wasn't officially replaced as the standard issue rifle until the M14 received adoption in 1957, with formal replacement announced on March 26, 1958. Troops began receiving the new rifle starting July 1959. Completely transitioning across all Army units, consumed until 1961, and even afterward, M1 Garands remained in active use with Reserve and National Guard units throughout the 1970s. The psychological effect of the M1 Garand on German soldiers proved profound and destabilizing. This weapon embodied technological superiority that contradicted everything Nazi propaganda had taught about American capabilities and character. German troops had absorbed constant indoctrination, celebrating Germanic technological genius and tactical supremacy. When individual German infantrymen, despite being properly equipped and thoroughly trained, found themselves consistently outmatched in firefights against individual American soldiers, something psychological broke. The carefully constructed myth of superiority shattered. Extensive post-war analysis of small unit combat actions painted a consistent picture. American infantry squads inflicted disproportionately higher casualties in firefights. This advantage wasn't random or circumstantial. The rifle each soldier carried produced measurable differences in combat outcomes. American casualties from German rifle fire remained proportionally lower throughout the conflict, another clear indicator of the M1's operational superiority. German efforts to compensate through superior tactical positioning and more sophisticated maneuvering achieved only partial success. Eventually, the sheer volume of accurate, directed fire from American infantry would find targets, suppress defensive positions, and enable American assault elements to move forward and eliminate German strongpoints. The M1 Garand's legacy reaches far beyond World War II into the evolution of modern firearms. The principle it demonstrated, that infantry forces benefit substantially from self-loading rifles, enabling higher rates of fire without sacrificing accuracy, became foundational thinking in post-war weapons development across every military worldwide. Every contemporary infantry rifle, from the AK-47 to the M16 to today's modern assault rifles, owes conceptual ancestry to the M1 Garand. It conclusively proved that semi-automatic operation wasn't merely feasible for military rifles, but absolutely essential. The encounter between German infantry and American forces carrying M1 Garands represented a crucial moment in military history. Technological advantage met traditional military excellence and demonstrated convincingly that superior technology matters profoundly in actual combat. German training was excellent, their tactical doctrine sound, their individual soldiers of high quality by any objective measure. Yet excellence in theory produces inferior results when facing superior weapons. The Garand equipped American infantrymen with capability to fight effectively even when outnumbered significantly, to win firefights against veteran troops, and to assault fortified positions that should logically have been nearly unbreakable. From Pacific islands to North African deserts, from Sicilian shores to Normandy's beaches, from dense hedgerows to Rhine crossings, the M1 Garand performed faithfully and effectively throughout the war. It fully earned its reputation as one of the greatest military rifles ever designed. General Patton's famous praise proved entirely justified and not exaggerated. German soldiers learned through painful battlefield experience what American infantry firepower actually meant. It represented a fundamental tactical challenge their bolt-action rifles simply could not overcome. The Garand announced that warfare had entered a different era entirely. The chapter of massed infantry armed exclusively with bolt-action rifles had closed. Semi-automatic rifles represented the future, and the M1 Garand made this reality undeniable to military establishments worldwide. German infantry, brave and competent though they were, fought carrying equipment that placed them at serious disadvantage in the most fundamental infantry responsibility: striking the enemy before the enemy strikes you. The mathematics remained relentless throughout the entire conflict. During the time required for a German soldier to carefully aim and fire 3 shots from his Kar 98K, an American infantryman with his M1 Garand could fire 8 rounds. When both soldiers possessed equal training, the American would connect with 2 to 3 times as many targets. When examining squad-level combat, this disparity became crushing. The M1 Garand gave American squads numerical superiority in firepower, even when German forces actually outnumbered them in total personnel. German military analysts studying their defeats after the war repeatedly identified this firepower disparity as crucial. General Hasso von Manteuffel, who commanded the 5th Panzer Army during the December 16, 1944, Ardennes offensive, noted in post-war writings that American infantry firepower exceeded German infantry firepower even when German forces defended prepared positions. The human toll of this firepower imbalance shows clearly in casualty statistics. Though many elements influenced casualty rates, artillery, air superiority, tactics, and terrain all played roles, careful analysis of small unit actions consistently demonstrated American infantry inflicting disproportionate casualties in firefights. The rifle individual soldiers carried created measurable differences in outcomes. German casualties from rifle fire remained significant throughout the conflict, and the M1 Garand deserved substantial recognition for this. Ultimately, the M1 Garand's significance in World War II extended far beyond its technical specifications and mechanical features. It reflected American industrial foresight, engineering skill, and determination to equip soldiers with genuinely superior hardware. While Germany grappled with complex semi-automatic rifle programs that never produced meaningful quantities, America had already distributed proven, reliable semi-automatic rifles throughout its entire military force before even entering the war. This advantage multiplied across millions of soldiers and thousands of separate engagements, contributing significantly to Allied victory. The distinctive sound of an M1 Garand firing, the metallic ping of its clip ejecting into the air, the sight of American riflemen advancing with weapons at the ready, these became inseparably linked with Allied victory across both Europe and the Pacific. German soldiers learned to recognize and fear that particular sound. Understanding it meant facing opponents capable of delivering overwhelming, accurate firepower with speed and precision. The M1 Garand truly was the greatest battle implement ever created, and its decisive superiority over the Kar 98K received conclusive demonstration on battlefields from 1941 through 1945. The rifle alone didn't win the war. Victory required combined operations, air dominance, industrial capacity, and the courage of millions. But at squad level, where soldiers actually fought and perished, the M1 Garand delivered clear and measurable advantage that German infantry simply could not effectively counter. That advantage proved decisive in countless engagements, preserved American lives, and helped end the conflict sooner than might otherwise have occurred. The M1 Garand stands as powerful testament to what properly engineered military equipment can accomplish when placed in capable hands. It proved decisively that investing in soldier capabilities, furnishing them with the finest available tools, produces tangible returns in combat effectiveness and mission accomplishment. The rifle equipped American forces for over 2 decades, serving across 3 major conflicts. Its influence on subsequent rifle development continues right to the present day. For German infantrymen who encountered it in combat, the M1 Garand delivered an unwelcome lesson in technological reality. Superior equipment in skilled hands makes undeniable difference in battle outcomes.